Welcome to The Paradox. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Larson. Thank you for joining me as we explore the U.S. medical system in a fun and informative format through expert analysis. Today's a special edition. It's going to be a brief Facebook Live and hopefully YouTube posting, in addition to the podcast version, which will also be a short edition for today. We're going to talk about COVID and our American Independence Day from SARS-CoV-2 on June 1st, 2021. If you need background information about what we're talking, some of the basic sciences, I would suggest you go to the website at theparadox.com. That's paradocs.com. You can check out episodes 101, 114. There you can go to paradox.com/101, 114. And you can get the background information for what we're talking about. There's all kinds of other episodes there I'd encourage you to check out, relate to the U.S. medical system and basically medicine stuff. So the first thing I need you to do is I need you to look down, maybe look in the mirror, and if you're wearing a red shirt, I need you to take it off. Not just one sleeve, I need you to take the whole thing off. And if you look down and say, I'm wearing a blue shirt, I need you to take that off too. No red shirts, no blue shirts, no teams today in this brief discussion. I've tried it before and it doesn't work for me, so I'm not either. We're just going to have discussions as Americans. We're only discussing the United States. We're not going to discuss the rest of the world. They're in a different situation. And that's interesting. It's not what we're going to concern ourselves with today. The focus of today's discussion is just going to be America. It's time to open up because we have plenty of a really miraculous vaccine. The messenger RNA vaccines, I believe, are going to revolutionize medicine and medical treatment going forward. But the point is that right now, we are entering the last phase of the transition from a pandemic or epidemic to an endemic. And so why do I say this? Aren't you still potentially at risk for reinfection or breakthrough infections if you've been vaccinated? Won't we still get outbreaks? Until we hit herd immunity? So let's briefly talk numbers. As of this recording, looking at the CDC numbers, there have been 247 million Americans who have had vaccine doses. Those administered doses. 147 million people have been at least received one dose. 105 million, or 31.8% of Americans, are fully vaccinated. As a percent of the population, looking from a demographic standpoint, that's 56.3% of adults, those 18 or older, have had at least one dose and have decent immunity, and 40% have had full vaccination dose, which is 2 doses. Of those who are elderly, we'll call 65 and over, those who we know are most at risk for significant mortality and morbidity from COVID, 82.8% of those are at least received one dose, and almost 70% have received 2 doses or considered fully vaccinated for COVID. But that's only part of the story, right? Because the other half of the story is some people have had COVID. They have developed immunity from SARS-CoV-2 through natural infection. We know that immunity is at least as good, if not better, which is what we'd expect, as with the vaccination. Conservatively, that's 20 to 30% of Americans. So if you add that in, and assuming, again, those people are the same people who are getting vaccinated, you get numbers of 87% of the elderly, almost 90%, have immunity to SARS-CoV-2. And then for adults, it's 67.7%. We know that reinfections or breakthroughs with COVID are occurring, but they're usually much less severe and don't lead to hospitalizations, ICU stays, and potentially death. Of course, all the things can happen, but they are not as likely. So June 1st, 2021, about a month from this recording, should be American COVID Victory Day. All restrictions, mask mandates, lockdowns, gathering limits, all of it should go away. I don't care if you think lockdowns worked or if you think they didn't work. I don't care if you think masks are highly protective or if you think they're just like face diapers. I don't care. Those are debates that we can and should have over the next few years. But right now, we need to move forward together. No politics, no Democrats, no Republicans, no libertarians, no Greens, no independents, whatever. Just as Americans. We all need to recognize 6 things. 1, no matter what, there is no way to be 100% safe in life. 2, COVID will never, ever, ever go away. There are animal reservoirs. It is now endemic throughout the entire world. There's no way of eradicating this disease. 3, if you've been vaccinated or had the infection, you almost certainly have significant immunity going forward, even in the future with future infections. Looking at the previous exposures to coronaviruses other times, we know this to be the case. 4, we'll never reach 90% immunity in adults in the United States unless we use force. 5, no future COVID outbreak at this point will overwhelm the United States hospital system. There just aren't enough people who have not yet been exposed to COVID and have risk for hospitalization who are going to overwhelm our systems. They have not yet been overwhelmed. We have not run out of oxygen. We've not run out of ventilators. We've worried about it, but it hasn't happened. And the amount of people who are at the risk are not as great anymore as they were in the past. And lastly, there will be other outbreaks. There'll be other spikes. There'll be cases, hospitalizations, ICU stays, and even deaths. But as of today, any adult can easily obtain a full set of vaccines. Supply has now outstripped demand in the United States. In fact, a week from now, children down to the age of 12 will be eligible to receive a full set of vaccines, and they'll be done by the end of the month as well, or nearly, depending which one they get. If everyone wants to go get a vaccine, they can go get it and they can get vaccinated, and they can still be done by the end of the month. This means that every person who wants to have real protection, if they've not had a natural infection, can get it. It's amazing. And that also means the reasons for restrictions will be gone. So why do I say that? Well, we've already established that you can't be 100% safe, whether you've been vaccinated, previously infected, or not infected yet. You can get COVID. In fact, I guarantee you at some point you probably will. If you've had the vaccine or a previous infection, you're very unlikely to get as sick. If you're a kid, you rarely get very sick. It's almost a lightning strike as far as odds of becoming deathly ill. Again, it's not 0, but it's extremely rare. And if you're someone who's still very scared, even after with all the protection you've gained, you can still avoid groups. You can still avoid social interaction. You can still do the things you think are necessary to protect yourself. That will never go away. But if you're vaccinated or had a natural infection, you should feel safe to move around in crowds. There's no reason to be worried about starting a surge that will overwhelm the hospitals. There shouldn't really be much of a concern for getting extremely sick. And if some choose to get sick instead of getting vaccinated as a way of getting their immunization, or I should say immunity, that's their choice. The rest of us shouldn't be restrained any longer. It's wrong. It's unnecessary. We need to declare our independence from this virus. And if you believe we need to react or reach some sort of specific vaccination rate, that isn't based on science. That doesn't take into account all the people who have immunity from natural infections and from vaccinations. People who want real protection will be able to get it and have it so we can go back to normal life. And if you change your mind at some point, the vaccine will be there if you want to do it that way. There's no reason, scientific or epidemiological, to keep things shut down. This is America. We don't hog-tie people and jab them in the arm. We persuade and let people do as they please and live with the consequences of their decisions. So on June 1st, let's all declare independence from COVID for good. And finally, when it comes to children, I recognize your fear, and I understand your concern. Losing a child is the worst thing I can imagine happening as a parent. I've lived it. On August 15th, 2018, my son Andy died in a car accident to a distracted driver. There was nothing I could do. I understand the impulse to protect. I understand the fear parents have. I understand the difficulty in making decisions without perfect information. It's agonizing. But life, as I've learned, is sometimes brief and comes with no guarantees. After the accident, I had to make a decision whether to drive or not again. It wasn't an easy one. Driving, as we know, is a pretty risky behavior. It's very dangerous. All sorts of things can happen. We do it every day, so we don't think about the risks. But I had to weigh those risks of driving a car or not to drive a car. Would my children have fulfilling lives if we weren't able to drive and get to places and we're stuck at home? Not going to work, school, seeing friends, sports, activities. Would life be as rich? Would that be living? Ultimately, we chose to live and with the risk of driving. We're all faced with decisions as parents that we have to make without knowing the future. Most importantly, you'll have to figure out where you set the boundaries for life and risk for you. But this is not a political decision. It is personal and individual. Recognize that we weigh risks and benefits individually and with imperfect knowledge, information, but respect others' decisions and what they choose. That is the defining principle of America. So join with me together and let's celebrate the end of this pandemic on June 1st, 2021. And we can go back to wearing our red shirts and blue shirts another day. Thanks.